Hi guys, let's just dig through this psyop right here because it was pretty intense in this past week, and I found some interesting stuff on it, which might interest some people as well. So you had the entire slogan, "All eyes on Rafa" everywhere, and then of course the gazillion amount of pictures and photos of children and people in general, going up in flames, or you didn't even see that necessarily. You just saw like this one thing that stuck to my head was like this child or these children where they were saying the faces existed 24 hours ago, but then they don't exist. But honestly, no one can really verify that. So it's all just propaganda and agenda. And I want to start off saying, I mean, I'm on the side of the truth, so I'm not on either side, but I have had a few videos out, I think 2 to 3 videos out already, which I'll put here in this video. So I'll link them somewhere here so you guys can see them. Just going through what really is going on in the Middle East and why so many people are so separated on this and why they want to basically hijack people's frequencies around it. First and foremost, the content we are consuming, it does shift your frequency. So not just music, not just TV in general, but if you are on social media 24/7, which I know a whole bunch of people are, according to the stories of people that I follow on social media. And if you're posting nonstop about this issue, no matter what side you're on, your frequency has been completely hijacked by this. Okay. And that's exactly where they want you to be. And I want to talk about a different video on how social media and smart or dumb phones really reshape our brains and brain frequencies as well. It all has to do with this. And it would be good if people would just distance themselves from it. But for some, it seems like there's no other purpose in their lives than basically following this entire propaganda. Okay, so I'm going to go through some psychic insight that I got when I was just reading on this, because it's all just too convenient that this is an AI generated image and the coding it contains in it, which we'll see in a moment too. But basically, yeah, I just wanted to read on, okay, what's really going on in Gaza right now. Someone commented that you really pronounce it in a different way, like Gaza or Gaza, something like that. That's how Middle Easterners supposedly pronounce it, not Gaza, how a Westerner pronounce it. Well, I personally don't think it matters for the purpose of this video how you pronounce it, but I find it interesting how different cultures pronounce it differently because there's a different spell work behind it, obviously. And yes, in certain cultures, you do have the GH instead of just the GA, and you have to ask yourself why that really is. So if you're just here commenting on how you really pronounce it without getting the deeper message behind what I'm actually talking about and how everything is just rewiring your entire brain and rewiring your reality, I'm not really sure why you're even commenting or what you're doing here, but I don't really need that. Let's put it that way. But yeah, it's very interesting that you pronounce it in a different way when you're a Middle Easterner. I don't think I look Middle Eastern enough for you to even kind of imply that I'm pronouncing it in a wrong way. So also very interesting. But let's just go into the psychic insight. So when I was tapping into Palestine, specifically that Rafah area, what I got was a lot of black and gray fog, literally from fires, could be potential bombs or whatever that they were putting over there. It was very, very hard to read on that area, by the way, very, very hard. And so all these people who are saying, oh, they can remote view without ease when tapping into that area. No, there are a lot of blockages over that, and they're probably just being shown a whole bunch of images. Even when I tapped into that, I had to push aside a whole bunch of images that didn't feel like they were organic enough or they really belonged there, just to show you how difficult it really is. So there's a lot of dark energy. Like I already said in my latest Cypress video, there is a lot of dark energy in that area specifically in the world, which is kind of going over to other parts in Europe too. And some people cannot understand how evil that energy really feels, until you actually experience it in person. It's an evil energy, and it's not coming just from one side, by the way, but it is literally coming just in general from all the portals that are being opened up over that area. So this has nothing to do with being on one side or the other side. There's a different agenda playing out, and that is really the hijacking of everyone's energy who is feeding into that without being conscious of what they're feeding into. There's a lot of dark energy, a lot of burning, people crying out for help. So I did see that. It felt like an ethnic cleansing. And it also felt that this is a testing ground for future ethnic cleansings, or call it genocides. If they succeed here, there is no stopping elsewhere. And I also saw these pure AI drones or robot soldiers. I saw this image of like looking through the goggles, but it was not it was an artificial being. It wasn't a human necessarily, that was kind of scanning the environment through these goggles or through this visor, and basically just shooting her around, like really just causing more destruction with that. So they're probably employing a lot of AI in this war, by the way, which they've been doing that. I mean, they've had drones for how long? I don't know, but they've been actively employing drones no matter what country. The US has been doing this too for what, at least 10, 15 years? Was it 2007-ish, 2008-ish, 2010 and on? I'm not exactly sure, but maybe someone knows, you can comment below. So they've been doing that for a very, very long time already. And it's similar to what's going on here. These are not necessarily actual people that are doing that, but this is a lot of AI that is doing that too. You don't need an actual person anymore to cause this amount of destruction. However, there are actually people behind whatever is happening right now. So you have these robot soldiers scanning environments, and in all those social media posts, specifically this Instagram post, this one for sure, but they're opening up portals and feeding into the cabal by doing that. And it reminded me of the Lionsgate energy portal and how the energy during that time of year is really being harvested from all the people who participate in that. And then it's being used to call upon even more evil. So Hawaii happens during last year's Lionsgate portal, just to give people an understanding of that. And by feeding into this, the energy of the upset and angry is being harvested. There's a lot of dark portals open over that area, no matter what. There always have been. Also over other Middle Eastern countries, look at Iraq, look at Iran. Well, yeah, I guess Iran too. Afghanistan, Iraq, those are the huge wars, like that entire Gulf War area from the 90s and on. But even before that, there's a reason they keep hijacking that area over and over again, especially the Western US and other countries like England and way more Australia too. All these countries, they're all in the same boat in that sense. They're opening up a whole bunch of dark portals over that area by doing that. There's a lot of despair and anger in regards to Rafa, but instead that energy could be used to envision a protective something, a protective layer, a protective dome, a protective triangle even over that area, and to just have, abundance and health and food flowing into that area. But no, people, what they're doing is by feeding into all of this and by being really angry and really sad and just having all those emotions that are more on the negative side, which is nothing wrong with it, obviously. But by doing that continuously over the past 7 months, yeah, whenever it started in October, they're actually feeding into the energy that the cabal is harvesting. Whereas if you could just use that energy more productively and envision really a different outcome, like collectively, you could just achieve so much more. It does feel for some reason that this fall, meaning October, could be a critical point for that area. And it doesn't necessarily feel like they're going to succeed with the ethnic cleansing, at least not in this particular instance. But there will be more instances in the future. At least that's what it felt like when I was tapping into that. And it also just felt like the beginning of a war. So even though there are in talks right now of, possibly releasing the hostages or possibly just talking to each other, it didn't feel like this was the end necessarily. And if you look at how it's really been ramping up since 2020 and on, I mean, if you've been following it, I have been following that. That's why I know. And that's why also most of the pictures that are being shown, they were shown back then already, by the way. So these are old pictures that they're using to make people angry. So what was I going to say? Right. From 2020 and on, you already had a whole bunch of instability there. It's similar to that. It's going to continue. That instability seems to be continuing. Will this impact the Middle East in general? Obviously, you have other countries in the Middle East. It does seem like it will be tough. It could really impact tourism in that area as well. It's just this really dark cloud of energy, which feels it could be there until the end of the year, then maybe lifting, but not 100%. Especially in the areas around you. You have like Lebanon, you have Egypt, and all of that is very around. So there is this just very heavy energy that's over that area, which I picked up on when I was in that area recently. And it's so hard to describe to anyone who's not there and who's maybe, you know, who doesn't feel any energy at all, which I don't even know how you cannot feel that energy. But it's so hard to explain until you're actually there and you're like, oh, this is what the heaviness is, that you feel a little bit here, especially here in the Americas, maybe a bit more in other European countries. But when you're there, it's really in your face. You know, you can't ignore that at all. And so you definitely feel that at this point. Okay, so other things that I wanted to say. There's a meaning to Rafa. So the name Rafa, it means something. Rafa means prosperity and well-being. You have Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. And then also Egypt destroyed Rafa. This is back in 2013, by the way. Let me look at the date. Between July 2013, August 2015, Egyptian authorities demolished at least 3,200 residential, commercial, administrative, community buildings along the border, forcibly evicting thousands of people. So Rafah has always been this focal point just because it's right there on the border to Egypt and Gaza. There's an archangel Raphael. So Rafa, you know, Rafa sounds like all these things, and there's meanings behind. It's not just the name that they picked, but he has to do with the Judgment Day. So that's kind of what it feels like in that area. You know, everything kind of ramped up until now, where it's truly Judgment Day, or at least it feels like Judgment Day. There is even a Rafa symbol, although that has more to do with a sports symbol, which is the symbol of what? A raging bull, meaning anger. And that's exactly what they're harvesting right now. There is a Rafa in Saudi Arabia. It's spelled a little bit different. It's spelled Rafha, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a town and governorate. And this came up when I was just putting in Middle East randomly on the maps. And then I was somewhere in Saudi Arabia where Rafa was. The name Rafa can mean kind, compassionate, tender-hearted. So this is of Arabic origin. And all eyes on Rafa. Well, eyes are AI. So this basically AI. And when you go to what is all eyes on Rafa, what does it actually mean? What is it? It's an artificial intelligence, AI, generated image with a slogan calling attention to the situation on Rafa, which is the southernmost city in the Gaza Strip near the border with Egypt. So they're already saying this is not what it looks like. It's AI generated. And when I first tapped onto this, I got this block. And this is how you're being communicated with the spirit realm, by the way. When you get all these blockages, when you try to look into a subject or read on a subject, it means there are these huge energetic blockages over it. Okay. So you're either going to be accepting or rejecting these blockages. And I usually just reject all of them because I reject everything that is not a part of my reality, that I don't want as a part of my reality, meaning dark agendas. But this is how it works. So when you already get a million pop-ups, you know, okay, there's something foul with it. So here you have all eyes on Rafa. Let me just go through the meanings of the words again. Oh yeah, this was interesting. So if you just zoom into it, okay, it's an AI generated image that already gives you an idea of, there could very well be hidden words, hidden letters in there, which I kind of see. I don't want to say USA, but it could be USA. It could also be like, I see the number 2 somewhere down here. which we'll go into as well. I was looking for an online decoder to decode all of this, but you can't really find it because they have the decoder for it on their end, whoever put this out. Supposedly a random user from Malaysia created this image and put it out in the world, and it was shared how many million times? Like 40 million times at this point? No, nonsense. This is created by the dark forces, like by the cabal, put into people to hypnotize them. And the more people look at this, the more all of this hypnotic stuff that you don't see with your bare eye, but that your subconscious is picking up on, like down here, it could very well mean like USA. It could also mean like destroy Gaza. Like you need a decoder to really decode this. It could mean like the number here could be 20 something. It could be an actual date they're giving us, but that's kind of how it works. And if you look at all these things, which is a bit blurry in this image, there are so many decoders to hypnotize you, similar to like the BBC logo and every single commercial. They all have the codes in it that or subliminal things that our subconscious picks up on, and is similar to this image as well. So if someone wants to uncode that or decode that for us, definitely do that. That would be pretty cool if you could do that, just to prove a point. Then there's another thing here, Rafa. So what I see is R-A, meaning Ra, the god Ra. Okay, so Ra, anything that worships Ra, like Ra is not necessarily a good or a bad god, but you get the idea. There's Ra in everything. Every single name almost has a Ra, like a feminine name ends in a Ra, all of that. So we're all being hypnotized by Ra, who is a god. And these gods tend to be like very angry, by the way, or the energy behind it. Let's put it that way. The entities and energies behind it. What I also see is RAF, which is like Royal Air Force. That could be the British Air Force. You have like RA, FA, and then A. So RAF, RA, and then FAH. So maybe RAF, I don't know. I mean, you can read different things into it, but I really do see like little dots and periods behind the A that I don't necessarily see here behind the F, and then here another one. So they're definitely doing some subliminal things to our subconscious by posting these things online. It's pure evil what's happening there. They're keeping the world strung along. They're toying with people's lives. So I do think people are dying in that area, by the way, if you haven't gotten that memo yet. If they, meaning the politicians in charge, the world controllers, or the people who want to control the world, if they really would have wanted to end it, they would have done it already. They do have the power to end this if they want to, but it's basically just like a bad sci-fi movie. And they're just keeping people strung along because they're harvesting the energy that people are admitting, that the energy that people are giving into this, which 99% is complete negative energy. And the more upset you are, the more these entities and the more these beings have a feast fest with it, by the way, which is exactly why you need to stay in the center, right? Like it's always good to stay in the center. Euphoria is also great, of course, but there's not much to be euphoric about in this particular instance. So subliminal hypnotic numbers and letters are here in the background, which I personally see. I was like, maybe it even means like destroy Gaza. Maybe they hid a code sentence somewhere in here being like, oh, destroy Gaza. And then the more people are saying all eyes on Rafah, the more they're saying the opposite, which that would make a lot of sense because that's how these matrix controllers really do work. But I almost think I see like a USA in here. Like this could be a U, this could be an S, like just, in the reverse letters too, like reverse speeching everything as well. What I found very interesting is you weren't able to discuss Ukraine on YouTube, or, PayPal would even send out notifications being like, if you're against the entire Ukraine thing, you're going to be censored and taken out of our system. And Google was the same, but actually no one cares about this topic. Like I haven't gotten too many emails about, oh, if you're against so-and-so, if you're against Israel, or if you're against Gaza, like you're going to be censored. No, they haven't, which is also pretty telling. It could, of course, have to do with that. A lot of people are talking about the Zionists that are controlling the world, and a lot of those seem to be Jewish or whatever. It could have to do with that too. But I found it interesting that you would get those almost immediately in 2022 with the entire Russia war, whereas with this one, you didn't get any of that. So where are the eyes distracted from is what I'm always wondering when I have like, okay, all eyes on Rafa. So this is basically AI on Rafa, which is basically the entire AI war gear that they're using. And then there was, if you reverse Rafa, I look through my notes here. If you reverse Rafa, you have Hafar, Hafar, which, what does Hafar mean? Digger. It means a few other things too, but the main reason, if you just translate is digging. And that seems to be of Hebrew origin too. So maybe it has a different meaning in Arabic. But if the Hebrew origin, meaning Jewish origin, is digging, this means they're digging for something. And that kind of corresponds to what I had gotten earlier, like a few months ago, on how a treasure is in that area and they're really trying to get to it. And they're not getting to it because a lot of souls are protecting this area. I also keep getting the Vatican is involved with this as per usual, even though they've been quite, silent on this entire matter. And it doesn't seem like they're actively involved with it, but I get the same dark energy with this entire thing. I get the same dark energy that I get when I tap into the Vatican. Another very interesting, and the Vatican's the most evil institution out there for people who haven't gotten that memo yet. I get severely psychically attacked every time I want to read on it or somehow remote view it or just kind of connect with it. There's always a fly around me, so I know they're sending flies just to spy on me or whatever, because they can't do it through my screens. I write everything on handwritten notes, and how else would they spy on me? They just remote view it through that and hijack the bodies of a fly or just a random being, just like a cockroach or a bug around you. And that's how they work. They're able to shapeshift into those things too, but it's more like they're hijacking the consciousness of these smaller critters. And then they just toss them to a side, meaning those things are dead after the use is done, or they just don't exist anymore, which is all very interesting. Once you know that, and I've known that since like 2020, 2021, I saw that clearly like 3-4 years ago. And I was like, oh, why is there a random fly all of a sudden when I had just turned off all my screens? Well, because they still want to see what you're up to, obviously. So it's all this technology that they're using. There's this article, and of course it came from Israel. This is what really gets me, like all these Israelis pretending this is not happening in their backyard. It's just absolutely outrageous. Israeli excavators discover 2,300-year-old gold ring at City of David site. So in Jerusalem, and here, Israel researchers digging in Jerusalem, City of David, Hafar, digging. City of David archaeological site have uncovered an exceedingly well-preserved 2,300-year-old ring that is believed to have belonged to a boy or a girl that lived in the area during the Hellenistic period. And they show this how, if it's a ruby or garnet ring in gold and belonged to a child or whatever, and someone's holding it, and I'm like, wow, how coincidental that this article was released on May 27th, which is basically the entire time that Rafa was going on. Also, there are some really interesting comments if you just kind of go, of course it's not going to do it now. Yeah, if you just go, this is like an Indian story, by the way. So Indians seem to be very involved in this, or like Indian people in general. But if you go to the comment section, of course, you see the regular comments that just want to cause more separation. If they release the kidnapped hostages, this would never happen. All of that was a setup. We know that anyhow, because the security in Israel, as I've experienced myself, is like no other country, and they almost strip searched me. And I know of actual Americans who were strip searched like years ago in Israel, by the way, because they just didn't like how they looked. If they don't like your face, they're going to strip search you. So it's absolutely impossible. What happened on October 7th, that was all coming from one government. This is not even anymore who did what. No, this is all just to ring in the disaster that we're dealing with right now. But here's a comment: why no eyes on Afghanistan, Myanmar? Is it Sudan that's going on right now too? So yeah, there are all these other agendas in the background, and all eyes are on this area right now, because if this one succeeds, the other ones might succeed too. So if one ethnic cleansing succeeds, the other ones might be pushed in the foreground as well. It's kind of like this trial test run. Here you see very clearly eyes, AI, soulless, very soulless. There's nothing there. This is like either an AI generated image, or if these two people really exist, they're soulless beings, they're clones. And I know I had a video out there on my old channel where I was going through how the Kardashians have no soul and all of that. And I might make another video. It's just hard to use people's images, let's put it that way, because I had a few images from people that I actually knew. So this would be an example. If you want to know what a soulless being looks like, this is empty. When I look at their eyes, it's complete emptiness, both of them, by the way. And I think these are Indian celebrities. So just for people who are curious what a soulless entity looks like. And a lot of, obviously we have 70-80% walking around the world. So it makes you really wonder how many souls exist, right? Even now, and how many others they try to traumatize just to get their soul out of their body. There's something else that I wanted to mention in this video, just kind of round it up, right? Yes, East Palestine, Ohio. Do you guys remember the fire that was going on here in February 2023? A year later, which is right now, people are still suffering from health issues from that area, by the way. And so people have been asking me about, oh, do you think in the pyramids, being in the Grand Canyon, all of that? What I got on that over a year ago already is that they are trying to recreate the Middle East and other places here, and in other, like maybe in Europe too, but they were trying to recreate them here in the US, similar to China. Like China's trying to recreate Paris and all those things in China, but that's pure AI what they're doing. Australia also has a lot of recreations from England. By the way, there's like a Newcastle in Australia and a Newcastle in England. So all of that kind of shows you they're trying to recreate certain things in certain areas in the world. That they are trying to recreate India here too. They just had this Indian temple open up in New Jersey, which is supposedly the biggest Indian temple outside of actual India. Insane. And I feel that is just a good example of how I do think India in general might want to overtake, a few economic markets. Let's put it that way, because what are they saying? India is already bigger than the Chinese market, or they said that a few years ago. I didn't look it up, so I'm not 100% sure if it's right. And every time you stumble over your words, by the way, they're just doing that. They're doing that through frequencies. And no, I'm not crazy. I know others are noticing too. And just because you can't see it with your bare eyes doesn't mean it doesn't exist, by the way. So we're up against a lot of things, by the way. We are up against so many things. Before making this video, they throw so much at, like, I couldn't sleep the night before, as per usual. When you want to discuss like an important topic, they try to throw all those things at you where, okay, so if you can't focus 100%, you can't really do this video. You can't do that. And we just got to push through. But it is interesting. Why are they trying to recreate the Middle East in the US and also other parts in the world, but in the US for sure? And that's been going on for a longer time, for a few thousand years, if not longer here, by the way. Or maybe just, I think it's more than just a few hundred years, but they have been trying to recreate it, and people are finding remnants of that when they go to certain parts in the Grand Canyon and all of that. Why are they trying to do that? Because it does appear they want to completely destroy the Middle East, or at least the energy there. And that's why the portals are open as well. And when I was talking about the New York City portal here, I didn't notice at first that, of course, I mean, at first it was like, yes, they have this portal open. Okay, it's going to stay open. But then mysteriously it just shuts down. And now it shuts down half of the day, because I actually visited it and it was shut down during that time of day. And I was like, this is not just a coincidence that they're closing it down as they please, but they're actually showing how much control they have over the portal here in New York City to Ireland. And they're just making up this really lame story of why it needs to be closed down, because, someone flashed someone off or whatever. That's not the real reason. The reason is it's similar to all of these energy portals. They open them and close them as they want them. And they have full control over that. And the one here is just a symbol of that, just like whatever we just discussed in this video. It's all just a symbol of Rafa and what it really means and how it hypnotizes people and why it upsets so many people too, by the way. Okay, so I hope this helped. It was a bit of a rambling, and thanks so much for following along. If you have any opinions on that are actually coming from a smart and grounded opinion, I'd like to hear them. If they're just coming from a place of hurt and taking sides, whatever, I think we're past that at this point, seriously. And I don't think anyone's really following along who's in that mentality anyhow. But I do understand why it's very upsetting. So talk to you in the next one. Thank you so much. And until then, bye guys.